These roads are so narrow and I can't see into the corners. That's why I have to drive slowly. Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm driving my 2009 Nissan GT-R. Yes, it's the Nissan and not the Lexus as usual. Very atypically, I'm driving it on a mountain road instead of my usual city driving. And there's a very specific reason for that. And that is that I think I'm starting to fall out of love with the GT-R. So I want to drive it properly to see if I can rekindle that love. Interestingly enough, I was originally planning on doing a tour of some great Swiss passes this week, but then I realized that most of the passes are still closed until the end of June for winter, apparently. And so I'm just driving around in my backyard. And no, I'm not driving the car on maximum attack, because there is too much traffic and there is people on bicycles and it's a bit too risky. And this is also another reason why I wanted to drive the GT-R a bit harder. It's because after all the stuff that happened to me last year with my driver's license suspension, I have still that PTSD. I'm still afraid of speeding. Not that I'm speeding now. I'm still afraid of driving a car really hard. I'm still afraid of maybe causing an accident, not because, I don't want to die. I don't think I'm going fast enough for that. And also I'm pretty careful of cyclists because, hey, sometimes I'm a cyclist as well. But because in Switzerland, of course, if you cause an accident, you lose your license. And if I lose my license now, it's 6 months. And I don't want to be without a license for 6 months. So I'm driving the car with as much attack as I dare, which to some people may be more than enough. To me, it's a bit unsatisfying. And this is also the reason why I don't know if I should keep this car. Because you see, the GT-R, it's one of those cars, it comes alive when you drive it hard, but I'm afraid to drive it hard, so I don't know. And when you're not driving it hard, it's not that engaging, it's not that interesting to be in. I mean, yes, it does feel like a sports car because it's harsh and uncomfortable, but it's not like when you drive, I don't know, like the Charger that just passed me by, where just being in it is kind of an adventure, something is an experience for itself. And I think the GT-R, being in it, it's kind of, a normal Japanese car. Sure, it has its own design quirks and everything, but it's not a place you just want to be in because it's so nice. I think for that I have my Lexus. Therefore, my reasoning is, if I don't drive it hard, what do I have it for? So either driving it a bit harder makes me fall back in love with the car, or otherwise, I think I'm going to sell it. Because you see, something I personally do not like is when a car doesn't get driven. And honestly, if I'm too scared to drive this car the way it was meant to be, I'm not going to drive it a lot. And cars that are not driven, I think are bad. I hate it. I think cars are meant to be driven. They're automobiles, so they should be mobile and not stationary. But I just don't want to be the guy who has the car that never moves. I mean, this car is a high mileage car anyway. It's got 107,000 kilometers right now. So I shouldn't be afraid to drive it a lot to rack up the miles, because it's not going to destroy the value anyway, because the car is pretty much, I'm sure, already bottomed out. So I should want to drive this car. But every time I do, it's kind of with an air of terror. I don't know what's around the corner. Okay, in this case it's a cyclist, which, fair enough. But what if it's the police? I mean, not that I'm speeding, because I'm definitely not. But there's always this feeling of, I'm doing something illegal, or just because I have a car that makes noise, I'm sort of a criminal, and I don't like that so much. Also, I think the GT-R is too fast. And this is a realization I've come to after many, many years of owning cars. You see, every time I got a new car, I wanted to one-up my previous car. So I always tried to get a car that's faster, that has more horsepower. And I've reached a point with the GT-R where I think it's, for the roads I drive, it's got too much power. And I think for the first time in my life, I might want to downgrade to a car that has less power. I mean, I don't mean a car that has no power, a car that is slow. I just mean a car that has less power, a car that you can drive to 80-90% more of the time, because the GT-R, I mean, the way I drive it, how much of the car do I use? 30%? 40%? I mean, in Switzerland, it's just a bit difficult, coupled also with the fact that we do not have racetracks in this country. And right now, with COVID and everything, it's not that easy to go abroad. And then again, also, I don't want to have, a half a day's commute every time I go to a racetrack. So I want maybe a car that I can drive on roads like these. Well, not right here because we're in town, but on these narrower, smaller mountain roads that I can have my fun with without really exceeding the speed limit. So I'm thinking kind of like a Mazda MX-5 or something like that. But I know myself, I don't know if I will ever be able to buy a car like that, because obviously I have some psychological issues. And so every time I start looking for these smaller, agile, less powerful cars, I somehow end up looking at Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and that's not really the point. If the GT-R is already too fast for me, what the hell do I want with one of those cars? A fun thing about the GT-R, if you drive it properly, you basically cannot transport anything in the car. Because you see, I've got stuff in the interior and it's all falling around and sloshing around, which is not great. But I used to work in Zug and used to take the mountain road back home because it was nicer to drive. And I usually would do my shopping in Zug and then drive home. And I had to stop with that because by the time I had arrived home, basically my shopping was destroyed. All my yogurt had leaked out, everything was broken because of the cornering forces. And this is the GT-R. It's faster than it seems, and I think as the next car, I want a car that feels faster than it actually is, because that will be beneficial to me and my driver's license, but I also think it will maybe give me some more driving pleasure. Maybe the GT-R is just too perfect for a normal driver, or you have to be a superhuman driver to really wring its neck, which I'm not. Then again, there's the other thing. My cars need to be dailyable. So I need to be able to drive the car for like every day for a week until I switch again. And that rules out a few cars. Especially in my mind, that rules out anything that's a classic car, because I don't think they have the reliability I need. And also, often classic cars do not have the comfort features that I want in a daily driver. Because let's face it, we are all spoiled. And by we, I mean me. I'm very spoiled. You see, I learned to drive in 2002. The oldest car I've ever owned was a Mercedes from 1991. And even that car had air conditioning, it had electric seats, it had a lot of creature comfort. So if you want an older car, you have to make do without many creature comforts. And the most important to me is air conditioning, which in Switzerland hadn't become really popular until I'd say the mid-90s for normal cars, and otherwise it was the late 80s for luxurious cars. Holy first gear. Woohoo! Oh, my god, this is such a capable car. But it makes you drive at speeds where once it loses its capabilities, you die. So the way I drive a GT-R, which is basically stop and go because I'm scared to drive fast in corners, and also I think the GT-R works best in the long corners, and around where I live most corners are kind of narrow and not those long fast corners, so you don't really get that much enjoyment out of the GT-R, especially since on the very narrow turns the GT-R tends to lock up its differentials and jump about. So it is a large car, it is a heavy car, it is very good for what it does, but I think I have reached a point where I might get rid of it. But before I do that, I will do my tour of Swiss mountain passes. So they open at the end of June, so in about a month's time I will try to do that, hoping that the weather isn't too terrible. And then if that drive doesn't rekindle my passion for the GT-R, then it's gone. And we'll see what I replace it with. And in that case, you will obviously be along for the ride. Did you have a car that you loved with a passion until you didn't anymore? Please comment down below. And I think that's it for this video. And I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this drive and see if it rekindles my passion in this old Japanese car. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Questi giorni, quando viene il bel sole, na 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 na. On days like these, when skies are blue and fields are green.